All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series, but the QA is the important part, obviously stands for question and answer. We like to make this an interactive conversation. I like to have my show on a Monday. We're going to get our tech week started right. Maybe we can sort out of our feels from the week before, just how stories are developing. We can keep track of them, not just get outraged by headlines. And then maybe some news broke over the weekend. Maybe there's a lot of historic stuff happening, and it would be nice if we could stop living in such interesting times for a minute. But because I know that it's probably not going to slow down anytime soon, I'm glad that I got y'all. We can have a little fun. We can kind of hang out. We can have a good time. And we can make this a back and forth. I love getting those comments. And I especially appreciate all the folks who are sharing videos and podcasts like these, bringing more cool nerds to the table so that we can sort out everything that's going on in this crazy world that we're living in right now. Already seeing an incredible group of names in the live chat. Simon says Hypno, H2O Taku, John Gao saying, I get notifications for your video uploads, but not for the live streams. Definitely fighting that uphill battle with YouTube. I'm going to shift just a little, and that way the chat shouldn't get as lost. There we go. Command control device. We've got JGJ. We've got Andre. Andre's jumping in to say hello. And of course, Jimmy Fire Dragon, always making sure that we're staying hydrated. You can definitely hear it in my voice. This is a mixture of yelling at softball, and then also the winds have been crazy in Southern California, and my sinuses are like, I feel like I've just been punched in the face. I was gonna give you a more graphic description of what's going on biologically, and I don't think you need that. I don't think you want that. Oh, we got Ted saying good morning. Say Solo Dolo Tex, just saying good morning. And I think we're gonna have a really fun show today. I'm gonna immediately pause right now to take a sip of coffee where I also hide the clearing of my sinuses for just 1 second. I recently got to guest on the Android Faithful podcast. And I love getting to hang out with Flo and with Jason and Ron. And Ron wasn't on this last week's show. But we had this whole like backstage conversation, just like what we've got to do while podcasting. Like maybe we'll turn the camera off if we've got to like, blow our nose or something like that. We're going to mute our microphone so that we can clear. And it was great in the middle of the show. Like Jason got the audio and video reversed. So he cut the microphone. I mean, he cut the video feed to his face, but then we heard him like, oh no, he was about to like sniffle or cough or sneeze or something like that. So it's just kind of funny what goes into producing some kind of live stream podcast type product for y'all. The human body's revolting and pretty gross. Oh, and Jose saying hello. It's been a while since I have joined live. I'm glad to see you, Jose. We've got kind of a slightly heavier news block. I do want to kind of owe some time at the end if folks want to bring up individual gadget chats, or if you have like questions about some of the stuff I've been reviewing lately. Like I've been covering a bunch of phones and stuff. But there were just, it seems like we cannot escape the trappings of AI. I'm going to warn you up front that when these stories all kind of snowball on top of each other, I like trying to package them, but I also ramble like crazy. So fair warning, this is going to be one of those where I'm probably going to hit one of those soapbox moments at some point on one of these articles, just because it has been exceedingly frustrating to see our industry continue to court business experiments as if they are legit business models, and with no repercussions for the companies except to see shareholder value and stock markets keep spiking on speculation for what these things might do. I don't want to I don't want to sound like I am some kind of investment guy. You should definitely not listen to me for any kind of like legit monetary financial advice. But these are trends that we've seen played out in other markets that I find very concerning. and we're all just kind of playing a game of chicken with the entire global economy. And I don't think we should be as comfortable with that idea as people who are like super into AI. To me, that sounds more like I just want to make more money on these companies until the economy actually does crater, and maybe I'll be one of the lucky ones who can get my money out at the right time. I don't feel like that's sustainable. I think we should be mad. So, see, I already dovetailed. Daylight savings is stupid. I am way off my normal schedule. This feels like 8 a.m. to me right now, which means I was up early trying to put together show notes and stuff. And I feel like this is going to be one of those where I just keep sidetracking myself. Every 10 minutes, we'll just see me divert. We got Bionic Scoop saying, one! I gotta say, Scoop! What's up, buddy? I believe Scoop is playing with a Vivo V series, and I'm kind of curious what he might think of like the cameras and stuff, because Scoop is a pretty legit photographer, and I always like kind of catching his vibe on what's going on. Like again, it's like the people I trust who actually have an eye for composition and photography. When I have an amazing experience with a phone or with a camera, I kind of like want to peek. Like, what do you guys think? Do you guys think it's pretty good? Am I way off the mark? Am I doing a good job? And Scoop's one of those that like, I'm with it. Oh, Wes, actually, I needed that, man. Wes is saying, get it together. Clap, 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 clap. He's giving me the Karen punctuation in between each word. I agree. Each syllable gets a clap. Bradley Larger saying, happy Monday. I almost missed this because of daylight savings time. Simon says, Hypno a heavy, but I digress. Oh, we got Stevie saying live from UNM, saying, hola, what's up, Stevie? And Chris Pollard, wow, that took like 6-page reloads and 1 Discord complaint for the YouTube chat window to load today. Laugh out loud. Happy Monday, everybody. Oh, and Bionic Scoop. Okay, Vivo V50, steady little camera. All right, dig it. I will take that as positive affirmation of my appreciation of Vivo's mid-rangers. So, let's jump into some housekeeping, because I've been a little off my schedule, and I'm trying to get back in sync with some of the Patreon perks. And one of the Patreon perks is early access at a higher tier. Everything that I produce is going to be public for everyone at some point, except for the specialty videos like the super long camera deep dives and the bar graph write-ups that I put out for my benchmarking tests. Those are Patreon exclusives, but within the Patreon, I still like to try and keep some things tiered. I really appreciate the people who support in any way. If you are sharing, if you are leaving comments and thumbs ups, and of course off of YouTube, if you're kind of posting links on other social media sites, that is huge. It helps us out so much. But for those folks that are directly helping to keep the lights on here in the Gadget Lab, that monetary contribution is amazing. We would not be able to get this done here in the Gadget Lab without that support. And so for housekeeping this week, most of these links are going to be Patreon links until I get back into the order of publishing this stuff publicly. So, going to screen share here. I was stoked to see the, you know what, I'm going to try this real quick, just for people on the live feed. I know this makes the video window kind of obnoxiously small. Actually, will that work if I, yeah, that looks okay. We can do that for now. Let me maybe see if I can shrink that a little. I don't know if that's going to work. Okay. So, back on track. I was stoked to see that all of the beta testing that we've been doing on Android, like Android 16 betas and Android 17 betas, we've been seeing these little sneaky desktop modes starting to be incorporated better. And it is a very tablet-y, simplified, multi-window UI. So you plug in your phone to another TV or monitor, and you get a slightly better workspace where apps can kind of float, much like Windows, Chrome OS, or Mac OS. Now, on Android 16, I just updated my Pixel, and when I plug in my non-beta running Pixel, I'm now getting that really polished up, cleaner look. It's still a very simplified desktop mode. It does not compete against Motorola's offerings, Honor's offerings, Huawei. I think there's another company that's probably doing a desktop mode in there. But this is like the bare minimum backbone for what a more usable experience should look like. It's missing so many of the bells and whistles, but I did want to take a look at that. It's Android 16. And then I also wanted to go back and kind of compare this against, I feel like, what was the peak of the previous generations of desktop mode. So any excuse to trot out an old LG is really just good times. And that video kind of has like how far we've come since the LG Velvet. The LG Velvet was almost 6 years ago. And considering the pace of innovation, maybe we could hope that we were further along, but at least we're seeing some progress on some features that Google deems worthy for a desktop mode. Then, scrolling down, this one was really fun to put together. What's the best way to play Tomb Raider 2013 on your phone? I've been bringing this up a bit recently where we're seeing some really good work with PC and console game developers taking mobile more seriously. Now, in the past, that's been mostly like, how can we put a game on an iPhone? But more recently, I think we've been seeing just sort of a little bit more effort, a little bit more interest. Like Netflix games does not draw much of an audience, but if you're paying for a Netflix subscription, it's kind of silly if you don't go peek through what kind of games you can get as part of your Netflix subscription. Like Red Dead Redemption, it's $40 on Google Play, or you could play it on Netflix. You're already paying for Red Dead Redemption Mobile. I mean, let me put it that way. You're already paying for Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. You might as well give it a shot. And especially if you know people with kids, get them off of the gotcha mechanics and all of the really predatory microtransactions and get them into some kind of game subscription. Again, if their folks are already paying for Netflix, they're already paying for better versions of games that aren't going to hammer them with ads and aren't going to feed them microtransactions. It is so much healthier. It's a more fun way to play. So, one of my absolute favorite developers is Feral Interactive, Feral. They've done some of the best work moving console and PC games to mobile. Most recently, at the end of last year, we saw an incredible port of Grid Legends, an excellent racing game. Before then, you would see their work in so many of my review videos because they're the ones who brought Alien Isolation to mobile. Again, incredible port of one of the all-time best horror games ever made. So now they've taken that approach. They've put their special sauce on it, their little sprinklings of magic. And Tomb Raider 2013 is a classic action adventure game. It is phenomenal. It's one of those games I rank very, very high in that kind of adventure category. Kind of feeling out like the Uncharted feels like, how can we make this a little bit more Indiana Jones? The storyline's pretty good, but it's just an all-round great action adventure title, and they've brought it to Android. So I went ahead and bought it again. It's a $20 game on Google Play right now, but I of course already have a copy of it on Steam, and I've been showing recently how we can, if you have games in your Steam account and you use an app like an emulator front end like GameSir's Game Hub, this is taking so much of the tinkering out of the equation. So I wanted to take a look, what is the best way to play Tomb Raider 2013? It's an over 10-year-old game. It's an almost 13-year-old game at this point, but it is gameplay and graphics and visuals and style that's still a lot better than many of the mobile games that are just sort of made directly for our phones and tablets. So this video was really fun to play with, was really fun to put together. And again, I find it's kind of surprising when we compare and contrast on the same phone. And what I'm going for is just the simplest, no tinkering installation. So I'm not installing an emulator app and loading up a bunch of custom drivers and turnip and protons and divx's and doing a whole bunch of like hacking of the mainframe with matrix text in like a command prompt window with sudo and all this other stuff. I installed GameSir's Game Hub. I logged into my Steam account. I searched for Tomb Raider 2013. I pushed install. Took a long time because it's a pretty big game. And then when it installed, I pushed play the game, and then I played the game. Honestly, it was a little bit longer to install than the install from Google Play. Not that much longer. Not that it didn't take that much longer to initialize, get all the settings up, just get everything ready to go. And there are things I can do with emulation that I can't do with the Android version, but there are things the Android version does better, and you can watch that video to compare and contrast. That's pretty great. Oh man, I've already got like a bunch of comments here. Michael C2, if you pay for Netflix, you can play Red Dead on a modern phone, unless it's a Pixel, of course. Someone please remind me. I thought Pixel 9 could handle Red Dead Redemption. I'm pretty confident Pixel 10 is gonna choke. So someone please correct me if I had that wrong. I don't know that you're gonna get like the top graphics settings at 60 frames per second, but I could have sworn Pixel 9's GPU being just a little bit beefier was gonna move that along. My only frustration is my only phone that can play Red Dead 1 is the OnePlus 12R, which doesn't have USB-C video output. I tried to sideload it on my V60, but it figures out it's an ineligible device. That's frustrating. Yeah, that's a bummer. From Ripso, I don't know why everyone is getting excited for a MacBook with 8 gigabytes of RAM. You cannot upgrade and use a phone SoC for 2 years from 2 years ago that isn't as good as the M1. Big whoop. We're going to talk about MacBooks later in the video. Later in the podcast. From Wes Easton replying to Michael, because now they can buy the form factor for a thing they're finally admitting they're not running Premiere Photoshop on and are getting priced almost accordingly. LOL. From Son John, hey Juan, did you speak about the new MacBooks yet? That's going to be later. We're going to tackle that as we get through the news and into the gadget block. From Command Control Device, I wonder if native Android port of Tomb Raider is more storage efficient than Game HUD method of playing the same game. That is a very good question, and I could probably answer that question. I might maybe write that up on the Patreon. Okay, we can kind of move along. From Michael C2, I know the Power VR GPU couldn't play it, but I guess I should look into whether the Pixel 9 could play. Actually, you know what? I've got a Pixel 9. It is running Android beta. Is it charged? Is my Pixel 9 charged? We're doing it live, folks. This is hard-hitting investigative journalism, you know, right now, in this moment. Let's say Red Dead Redemption. And yep. Okay, so Pixel 9 shows that I can buy and install the $40 copy of Red Dead Redemption. I just feel for all the people who say things like, oh, who would even want to play a game on their phones? I wouldn't knock it till you try it. And also I feel like it is a potential use of it, what should be a premium tier, super expensive pocket computer. Why wouldn't you want to drive that hardware more? If you're not doing things on your phone, you should really not be buying $1,200 phones. You should be buying like $300 phones. And that price, that MSRP, is a claim from the manufacturer that says, hey, we've got an amazing pocket computer, pocket camera, pocket production, and you can do so much more with it because it's over $1,000. And so if I take my phone with me and I can play games directly from my Steam account, I don't have to worry about also bringing my Steam Deck. You see, my Steam Deck is so much bigger than my phone and a controller. See, this is like what I use to test, you know, sort of these games. So this is a OnePlus 15. And I put it into this little controller guy here. I don't have it centered as well as the OnePlus 15 can be centered. And like this is so much smaller and lighter than a Steam Deck and the screen is better because I also have an LCD Steam Deck. But even for the OLED Steam Deck, the screen is better. And I can do things like play Alien Isolation at over 100 frames per second, which my Steam Deck can't do. Actually have that frame rate visualized up on the screen. So if I could just do this, and I have bypass charging so I don't have to cook the phone's battery, and this to me is worth investigating. Do I need to have a $900 phone and a $400 portable console? Maybe I don't. Maybe this is okay. Maybe I'm testing out. There are some recent game announcements that games are coming to Android and to mobile, but they've been out on PC and consoles for a while. And maybe I own them already and I don't need to spend another dime. I can just play the games I already own on the phone with the controller. And I think that would be interesting information for folks out there who might be struggling to pick up a gaming PC or a gaming portable or something like that. I think that would be fun to know. Aren't there some nerds out there who like to tinker and they like to play games and maybe they don't want to buy an MSI Claw? Michael C2, you just happen to have a Pixel 9 within 3 inches of your hand. I'm sorry, I probably could have walked into that with the answer already. I don't think my Pixel 10 is charged. These things like don't hold. Oh, it is at like 2%. Let me just see if they'll let me install it before the phone battery dies. Then I got to plug this thing in. It's like the standby times on Pixels are miserable, and I don't even have SIM cards in them. Dead Redemption. It says it'll. Oh, it says it'll install the Netflix, and the other one. Yeah, okay. So just like on the Pixel 10 2, it'll say it says it'll install. I don't feel like buying Red Dead Redemption, so I don't know that I'll do that testing, but something tells me the Pixel 9 will play it demonstrably better than the Pixel 10. Cedric Owens, I was in Verizon yesterday with my brother and sister-in-law. They were trying to get her into an S26 Plus. I told her I'll find her a better phone for her needs. Camera, battery, charging speed, that's all she needs. I mean, the tricky thing is Verizon. I mean, because I want to say, oh yeah, grab a One Plus. It'll at least be competitive or slightly better than an S26 Plus for camera tech, and then the charging's going to be way better. But Verizon is miserable to deal with phones that you bring from off their network. And if you can't get them to like switch to a T-Mobile or a T-Mobile MVNO, you might just run into issues. Like, you don't want to be that guy who offers a solution like, yes, this hardware is better, but then the network stomps on your neck, and then they're going to blame you for offering the phone that doesn't just work, right? So maybe if they've got a Moto in there, maybe, but if you can't get like good positive confirmation that an OP is going to sign on, that they're going to leave it alone, that it's going to be well supported for at least sub-6 5G, then you might not want to stick your neck out to have that be an issue. You probably have the right advice. This phone would be better for your needs, but your carrier is preventing this from working the way that it should. And you just got to drill that point or else they're going to blame you. Let me get this out of the way. Okay, so I want to wrap up housekeeping. I've already talked way too long. This one did go public. This isn't just on the Patreon. The Infinix Note 60 Ultra, embarrassing Samsung and Google. I loved playing with this phone. I could have sworn I had my hands on the Note 50 Pro. I cannot find it, and if I did not make a video on it. I feel real bad that maybe Infinix sent me a phone and I just forgot to review it. But I swear to you, in my brain, I used that phone, like the Note 50. So that omission notwithstanding, Note 60 Pro rocked my socks. Sub $400 phone. Incredible hardware, great build quality. They're expanding their support, their commitments. Software is now going out to 5 years of security patches. This is a big move for this brand that has this reputation of just being like ultra dirt cheap phones. Note 60 Ultra is a huge swing. It's a big step up the pricing market for them, where they're still going to undercut like even OnePlus. OnePlus is a company that does a good job of undercutting Samsung. Infinix is looking at how can they undercut a company like OnePlus and offer a pretty remarkable value proposition. So this is just impressive design, great build quality, really fun premium materials like Kevlar cases, things like we haven't played with for a long time, like back in the Motorola Kevlar and carbon fiber days. It's really, really fun stuff. Little ticker display on the back, kind of like a nothing phone, and better camera sensors, not necessarily all around better camera performance, but better camera hardware than what we would have on a OnePlus 15, which means this sub 800-ish dollar phone also has better camera sensors than a Galaxy S26 or S26 Plus with a bigger battery and faster charging and just really remarkable competition. And it makes me so sad that we don't get to play with these things in the United States legitimately because we've got kind of a locked up market. And this kind of competition would absolutely be keeping Google and Apple and Samsung on their toes. It's tough. From Jose, I'm using the Xiaomi 17 Ultra on LTE on Verizon. It does support 5G bands, but those are locked. So that might be a thing. Again, if there's a way, like maybe set her phone, her current phone, go into the settings and disable 5G and see, like, does she even notice the difference? Because if the LTE coverage in her area, because Verizon had really deep coverage, really, really deep penetration on LTE in their markets. It was kind of like T-Mobile kind of caught us by surprise with their sub-6 5G and then their UC. What you might be able to do is see if her LTE is solid, Cedric. Then maybe it's not as critical if she gets a OnePlus and then the network is playing games with her phone and like blocks her from 5G if she doesn't notice that she's not getting all the G's that she's paying for. So I don't know. We'll see. But thank you, Jose, for jumping in on that. All right. So you know what? I've got other things here. I've been posting a lot. Patreon.com/somegadgetguy. All of these videos and stories are also going to be going live on somegadgetguy.com and of course on my YouTube channel. All of the sharing, greatly appreciated. But we got to jump into a show proper. It's already 9:27 in the AM. I love the texture of my voice, but I know it won't last for another hour and a half or 2 hours long. So let's chew through some heavy-duty news, and then we can spend some time talking MacBooks and silliness and stuff like that. All right, so Ars Technica has a court case up. I love to start with some of the more political news, and of course, whenever I'm talking about these stories, I'm not trying to read the whole story for you. In fact, one of the stories that we're going to talk about is how current journalism and current websites are just getting wrecked. So when you go to somegadgetguy.com and you catch the show notes for each one of my episodes, there's going to be a wall of links. Some of them are my housekeeping links, and then under those are all of the stories. And it is such a kindness. It is so important to me that folks go and give these websites traffic. They are getting harmed by AI search. And it matters a lot. If you want good journalism, good reviews, good editorials, can't pay for those unless those sites are getting traffic. Excuse me. So one of my all-time favorites, oh man, excuse me. One of my all-time favorites, often a major part of my RSS feed reader, is Ars Technica. And we've got a story here that's actually from the Financial Times, but Financial Times and Ars Technica are collaborative websites. I caught it first on Ars. I'm going to try and give Ars the traffic. Musk testifies tweet that led to $44 billion lawsuit, quote, may not have been my wisest. This is in a recent court case from the article. Elon Musk has acknowledged that the tweet at the center of a multi-billion-dollar lawsuit over his $44 billion acquisition of Twitter, quote, may have not been my wisest, as the world's richest man defends himself from allegations of market manipulation in court. He told the San Francisco jury on Wednesday that his post was not intended to manipulate Twitter's stock price in the midst of the takeover battle. On May 13th, he tweeted that the deal was temporarily on hold unless the company could prove that spam fake accounts do indeed represent less than 5% of users. The stock fell 9% when markets opened that day. So here's the thing that really frustrates is in a court case like this, to arrive at like beyond any kind of doubt, we're trying to prove some kind of intent, that his intent was to manipulate what was going on. So it's very easy for who I feel like Musk is not a genuine or earnest participant in any of these kinds of conversations for him to say, oh, that's not what I meant. So his excuse is he meant the deal was on hold until he could get to a meeting and he was running late to the meeting. I don't have any evidence. I'm not making a claim. There is no legal stand. I'm not saying that this is a false statement. But I'm saying, like, that doesn't feel like an earnest explanation or a realistically honest explanation of what he was doing. This deal is on hold. I'm running late. That's not what you mean when you say, I'm going to put a $44 billion deal on hold if you can't prove the number of bots. No. See, I was just running late to the meeting, and what I was saying is you have to put the meeting and the deal on hold. See, like air quotes. See, so this is where I think many of us are getting really frustrated with how this system works when we're talking about legal disputes and someone with billions of dollars is kind of involved in this, is that we can always play these semantic language games, and then we always have to pretend like that's legally the correct process. We are never going to hold someone accountable for their actions because there's always some kind of plausible deniability or, oh, but that's not what I meant. Obviously, I didn't mean I was going to put the deal on hold. I just said I was going to put the deal on hold. You see the difference. I used different emphasis. And it's just so hard to get that nuance across in a tweet. And he goes on to talk about, like, oh, just people overreact to all these things, like, all the time. But this is a pretty common pattern of behavior. We see this from a number of individuals who love to rant in public. Those rants create temperament or changes in the market. Prices on stocks fluctuate, but then we can't ever seem to prove that there was any intent at manipulating the market. And Musk is an individual who has been accused of this kind of behavior in the past. So this is a court case I think we need to follow up on. We're going to keep an eye on it. I just feel like it's frustrating because on the one hand, it's like I would love to see a market correction for what I feel are bad faith business decisions, public disclosures, things that are on the surface pretty apparent attempts at changing up prices and stocks. And there are people who lost money on these types of business deals saying like, oh, well, I caught this and then that caused doubt in the market and I sold at 30, but I could have waited and it would have been at 50. So this was market manipulation. I don't have much sympathy for folks investing in Twitter, maybe getting taken for a ride. You invested in an Elon Musk company and then you expected an earnest participant. No, that's kind of on you if you took a bath on Twitter stock when he was trying to buy the company. But this is one of the few opportunities that I've seen that might go some distance in encouraging some kind of market correction, some kind of adjustment, or maybe even just some kind of change in Musk's behavior. It would be nice if we could just get him to be like 7% less visible in how obnoxious he can be. So, pretty disappointing. All right, moving right along. Let me get this updated here. Oh, that's funny because the name of the story, the first word in the story is updated. All right, so I'm a big regulations nerd. Again, I'm like gonna lose so much audience over these first couple stories because it's like, oh, let's talk about regulations in the EU. But this stuff is critically important, and I'm gonna be the one just to kind of point out some differences in behavior. I just finished a story where the SEC won't let me be me, or take Elon Musk or any other billionaires to task for horrific market manipulation and insider trading and obvious abuses of our financial markets. I have no evidence of that. I'm just saying it feels that way, right? So then I point out like EU regulators doing some really impressive things that help rein in just some light bumper rails, guardrails on some of the most egregious behaviors from massive corporations. And again, you watch like Facebook and Twitter freak out. How dare they say that we can't peddle AI generated adult content of underage people on our platforms? They're like worse than Germany in World War II. So I was all set to get kind of lit up about this story. The EU is mandating some changes. Countries are very interested in how they can kind of untangle themselves from uh, American companies, American tech companies, American software solutions. We've been talking like everyone loves to joke, like, oh, they've been saying it for like 30 years. Oh, it's the year of Linux. But something critical is happening where there are changes in government behavior, in consumer behavior. There's some interest, and it's obviously not going to be tomorrow 80% of the market uses Ubuntu. That's such a stupid, reductive oversimplification of a trend. And any techie who's kind of engaged in that, also not an earnest participant. But when I pick up my Steam Deck and I hand it to someone else, they play a game, they love it. That's Linux gaming. When I talk about open software like free document solutions and I see that on my daughter's school laptop, that's a change. We're exposing younger people to alternative software that's not just Google or Microsoft or Apple. Gilding this lily way too much. So I was all set to be critical of the EU's policy here. They're mandating these types of change, not mandating, that's not the right word. They're requesting these kinds of changes, but then they went and did something kind of funky with their documents and their document structure and support. So this is kind of a tricky one to get through. But this is from LibreOffice, the actual blog for LibreOffice. It's a free office suite. The European Commission. So the first, I'm going to read the original release. The European Commission has spent years advocating for open standards, vendor neutrality, and digital sovereignty. The European Interoperability Framework explicitly recommends open formats for public sector digital services. The EU's own open software strategy calls for reducing dependency on proprietary technologies, and the Cyber Resilience Act itself is designed to address systemic risks from unaccountable technology dependencies. On March 3rd, 2026, the European Commission published a request for feedback onto the guidances to be provided in relation to the CRA, which must be provided through the linked spreadsheet in an XLSX format, a proprietary format that makes interoperability extremely difficult due to its ever-changing and undocumented features. So, EU asks for comments and they put it into a document, a spreadsheet using XLSX, an Excel spreadsheet. So that was March 3rd. I was going to point this out as like a funny little, haha, look, the EU, they can't even hold to their own open standard document regulations. Like they put out this, how funny is that? It took less, so the LibreOffice gets a reply from the EU in 24 hours, in a day. And so now the article that they published on their blog, the request to the European Commission to adhere to its own guidelines, was updated in a day. And now here's the update. The European Commission has accepted our request and starting from today, March 6th, has added the open document format version of the spreadsheet to be used to provide the feedback. We are grateful to the people working at DG Connect, the Commission's Directorate General for Communications, Networks, Content, and Technology, for responding to our request within 24 hours. At this point, the rest of the message is no longer relevant and call for action is no longer necessary. So this is what a functional regulatory policy looks like. When you have actual regulators that are put in place to look at safeguards, bumper rails, and accepting these kinds of standards for consumer protections, they put out a request for information, they put out the document in a proprietary format, they were about to get savaged by all of the open source software nerds, and in less than 24 hours, they had also said, oh, you know what? That's actually a good point. Here's that same spreadsheet again, and if you need to use it in an open format, here's an ODS. And I want you to think, what would that look like if we talk about net neutrality and the FCC will have this random web page that's not linked to directly from anywhere else with a call for comments. If you want to comment on the future of net neutrality, it's this weird proprietary website design that doesn't link to or from anywhere. It takes like a late night talk show host to at least put the link somewhere so you can find it. And then in there, it's like you have to give up all of your personal information and say who you are, and you can't take it seriously. It's just going to be, your comment's going to be thrown out if it doesn't have like your home address and all this nonsense. It's such a pain. They are purposely making it difficult to talk to the commissions that have massive impact on your daily lives. And here, rightfully, an open software solution, an open document solution provider said, hey, that's not cool. You're using Excel spreadsheets. And the EU regulators went, yes, you know what? Our bad. Let's go ahead and fix that. And it took a day. It took a day, and there wasn't like some huge groundswell of outrage, because who was really going to get upset about an Excel spreadsheet, right? That is not rising to the level of marching in the streets with pitchforks and torches. And they still went out of their way to fix it. That to me is what functional regulating looks like, is that you make it more accessible and easier for everybody to participate instead of trying to make it to obfuscate as much as possible and to keep the public from ever kind of getting a handle on how they can contribute to the conversation. So it just made me, I was going to chuckle at first, like, aha, isn't that funny? They're not using open documents. And literally before I could even get to talking about this story, they'd already fixed it. And that makes me so sad, because that's the kind of functional government we should have, except we keep electing people that their sole mission seems to be breaking functional government. And consistently, that seems to be on one side of the aisle. Like, look at who's in charge of the FCC and the FTC and think, would they make an effort to open dialogue with people that are tech savvy enough to care about document formats and competition against Microsoft Office? And if you think that the people we have in charge of those commissions today actually would rise to that occasion, I'm sorry to tell you that you're probably incorrect. So it's pretty great. All right, so now here's the heavy AI block that I was threatening that we were going to do. I'm going to try and run through these. Like I said, I wanted to try and sandwich them together just because I feel it's getting a little dark. And we've been talking, all of us in the chat. I mean, like, those of you who have been tuning into the podcast regularly, I feel like we've been talking about this for a bit. I don't think it is Chicken Little. I don't think we're being too precious. I don't think we're being doomsayers or doomers or whatever phrase is kind of popular right now. I think the data center cloud AI market is an unsustainable business model. And they are trying to find ways to keep investments high and shareholders happy, but not with actual businesses that generate revenue and generate profits. And everyone who's saying, oh, well, it's not really a bubble. Like, yeah, there are parts of it that look kind of like a bubble, but then there are little parts of this that just provide so much value. And like, we can keep playing this game, but I feel like we're racing towards a breaking point because this is an unsustainable market. And the market is being propped up and inflated by unsustainable business practices. So, first up in our little trio of AI stories this week, Oracle layoffs, tech giant to slash 30,000 jobs as banks pull out from financing AI data centers. According to a report by CIO citing research published this week by investment bank TD Cowen, Oracle will also be selling some of its activities at U.S. banks. Oracle will also be selling some of its activities as U.S. banks pull back from investing in the company's AI data center expansion. The financing pressures are already taking a toll on Oracle's customer relationships. The company had earlier taken up projects to build data centers for Sam Altman's OpenAI, a commitment the TD Cowen pegs at around $156 billion. However, over the past few weeks, several U.S. banks have pulled out of lending to Oracle for expanding its AI data centers. Now, I don't want to say bubble, but I really want to say bubble. I don't see how this can be anything but an investor rug pull. We're playing a stupid game of chicken, racing to see how much we can inflate the value, get our money out before the whole thing craters. I feel banks pulling out of investments for companies like Oracle and OpenAI is a pretty big warning sign that maybe you need to start looking at your exit strategy for how to get out of a market that is this hyperinflated, that is not delivering value for the incredible 156 billion, and now they're going to have to put a little bit of a slowdown, a little bit of a pinch on their data center expansions. I'm so proud of the communities out there that are fighting like data centers, no data centers in our backyard. Like, let's just subsidize all of their electricity. Let's have them put huge strain on the water table, the water system in those areas. Like, what value do those people get in their neighborhoods? Probably very little. And that pushback is starting to have an effect. Everything that is legit grassroots, you're not hearing about because our media is still playing this obnoxious game of, but will AI be able to do all this? We asked a question in the headline of this article. It must be a really interesting and fascinating conversation as middle managers are trying to cut back on all of their employee costs by paying more and more for AI, that if they do get rid of all of the humans, then OpenAI will just charge us substantially more to use all the data centers. They're trying to make it cool and cheap and subsidized, but they're burning cash at a rate that they can't sustain, and their valuation is way overvalued for a company that probably won't be profitable in the next 10 years. I had to get that out of my system. Because the next story is sort of, I feel, contributing to the perception of what OpenAI is bringing to the table. This coming by way of CNBC, written up by Ashley Kaput. Ashley's been pretty regular in these conversations. I actually like following her stories. I might need to see if I can find just a way not to subscribe to CNBC, but just to subscribe to Ashley in my RSS feed reader. NVIDIA CEO Huang says $30 billion OpenAI investment, quote, might be the last, end quote. Huang said the opportunity to invest $100 billion in OpenAI, which was the figure that the two companies touted as part of a massive infrastructure deal in September, is probably, quote, not in the cards. The reasons for that is because they're going to go public, Huang said during the Morgan Stanley Technology, Media, and Telecom Conference on Wednesday. He also mentioned that NVIDIA's $10 billion investment in OpenAI rival Anthropic would likely be its last. NVIDIA previously shared its plans to invest in Anthropic in an announcement alongside Microsoft in November. There was one other little quote down here. NVIDIA included similar language in its quarterly filing in February, which noted that there was no assurance that the company will enter into an investment and partnership agreement with OpenAI or that a transaction will be completed. So the chipmaker's $30 billion investment in OpenAI was unveiled as part of a $110 billion funding round that the startup announced on Friday. The round also included a $50 billion commitment from Amazon and a $30 billion commitment from SoftBank. So this OpenAI is a startup. They are now valued, I want to say, at almost $1 trillion. Their roadmaps, their churn is like, we're going to start burning hundreds of $billions a year. And their roadmaps are saying, like, by 2030, we'll have closed the gap on our losses. So, like, over the next 4 years, where they're burning hundreds of billions of dollars a year, by 2030, they'll just be less in the red. Because they'll just keep doing more funding rounds, guys. Guys, you can just go to investors and say you want more OpenAI stock. You want more OpenAI stock, you just give us more monies and we'll do more AIs. They are literally telling us they don't have a plan for profitability. And the cynicism of these moves, NVIDIA investing in OpenAI, what does that mean? NVIDIA is going to give you $30 billion. Now, what does OpenAI say they're going to do with $30 billion? Well, they're going to invest in more data center, more hardware, more compute. So NVIDIA gives them $30 billion. We're pretty confident a good chunk of that is going to go right back to NVIDIA to get the hardware. And then NVIDIA can say, well, but look, yeah, we did this really great investment and then that paid off. Look at these hardware sales. Now we've got like a $30 billion sale from OpenAI. So we're going to take that $30 billion and invest in another. We'll invest in Anthropic. And they're going to give $10 billion to Anthropic, and Anthropic's going to say, hey, this is great. We've got money. We can fund more research. We can fund more hardware. And then they go and buy more NVIDIA hardware. Like, I'm trying to not like bring up really distasteful metaphors from movies that become kind of circular and how like material is passed from one entity to another. It's wild, but I just feel it's so frustrating. I go into these conversations. I have like interviews. Like I got to talk to Michael Nordquist, a VP at AMD. And we all have to play this really safe, cagey game of talk. Well, you know, it's AI. We've got to talk about the value proposition. But we've done such a miserable job as techies. I'm saying on my side of the camera, we've done such a miserable job of really keeping consumers informed on what's happening and keeping consumers educated on trends. And then things like this are blowing up and people are racing into the last gasps of this amazing investment opportunity without a really good understanding of just how deep, how the roots are kind of entangled in government contracts, where all of this money is coming from. They just get excited when the S&P goes up another 2 points. And just like during the housing crisis, if AI turns into yet another tech rug pull like NFTs, all of the rich people are going to get their money out. All of the rich people are going to be subsidized. If there is like a cratering on a major corporation, well, they'll get a bailout. You can't have like a tech company go under. OpenAI will probably just be carved up for parts because they're not really generating anything of value to the level of the money that they are spending. And all of that's going to be on the backs of taxpayers and on the sort of lower tier investors who don't have like a direct communication pipeline to CEOs. And that sucks. Like I was saying, like I don't feel bad for people who got kind of roasted a bit on Twitter stock when Elon Musk was talking about buying Twitter. Sure, you played a stupid game, you won a stupid prize. But increasingly, it's just like, man, we have to take some ownership over the conversation. We have to include more people, branch out, find other opportunities to get people more involved than just listening to the marketing drivel that's just being sort of belched out on what passes for our mainstream media. Oh, AI is doing this, and do you think your job's going to be eliminated by AI? And middle managers are saying AI is making everyone more productive. And everyone knows that that's not true. But we're not really filling the lack of education. We're kind of dancing around it, and we're being really safe, and we're saying like, oh yeah, he's going to say, gotta watch. I mean, someday it'll get really good, and you gotta be careful, and this is what's going to happen. And their plans to make AI the real good AI that they've been promising us for years now is to increase compute power 1,000 times over what we have today, magically find solutions for all the energy and electricity they're going to need, magically find solutions for all the water use, find ways around all of the disastrous climate change that's been happening, where all of these companies have given up on their climate goals for 2030. Not only have they given up on not polluting our environment, they're way ahead of polluting our environment. So there's really no way for them to just scale back, because that's what we've built the economy on, is this massive inflated bubble. It's a balloon that's ready to pop. I should not be giving people investment advice because I am cranky and I take this personal and I wear my heart on my sleeve, and there's so much more we could be doing with this money. There is so much more we could be doing with this compute power that would slingshot humanity forward. But instead, we're trying to turn word completing, pattern recognizing chatbots into things that can take away your job. And NVIDIA is paying themselves to do it. At a time where, like, in the consumer market, like, there's virtually almost no market share for AMD and Intel GPUs. Like, you look at like the charts, what data we can collect on gamers, PC gamers, like almost none. And we're still trying to front a company like NVIDIA who is actively trying to make the market more difficult for gamers. But you need a 50 series GPU, am I right, guys? Up top. Like, at what point do the politics matter to us? And can we get to that point before the market is so disastrously cratered that there's nothing we can do anyway? I'm tired of the idea that this apathy is self-imposed because it's inevitable and nothing I do is going to change it, and there's just no way for us to so you might as well just go along with it until everything craters around us. Or maybe we just try. Maybe we try anything else when we have these conversations with family and friends. Oh, Georgie's saying hello, everyone. Georgie's been sharing some amazing photos on the Dig community. Georgie is a very talented photographer. And command control device, but Juan, how will people get advice without facing human interaction because they don't want to have an awkward moment / sarcasm? God, it's so tough. There's one mom at my daughter's school who is describing her, like, it's just so incredible what I can do with ChatGPT, and like it's giving me advice. She's starting to sound like one of those people who believes her copy of ChatGPT is becoming aware. I just like I'm really not trying to hurt you or like, you know, hurt your feelings, but you're engaged in a really parasocial relationship with the spell checker on your smartphone keyboard. It's not fundamentally different. It's just using a ton more electricity, and it breaks my heart. I try not to talk tech with her because she does like, oh, and you can do this, and it's so amazing, and I asked it for help, and it's like, I don't even need to look this up and you're like, man, you know, that's real bad for you, and it's confirming everything you think without actually challenging you or bringing up good information, especially if it ever contradicts you. And I just worry so many people are kind of falling into those same traps. There's that really silly joke, you know, like right now, the dumbest person you know was just told, that's an excellent idea from an AI chatbot. And you're like, that's where the future of society is going to take us. From Kenox80, Juan, somewhat related to EU regulations, have you read anything on California's new age verification law? I'm hearing that the law will apply to everything from your phone to smart toaster. So I feel this is one of those where government bureaucracy is trying to do something. And I feel that the way that California is engaged in this age verification process is like, what's the safest way that we can try to force age-related verification without us having to really do any of the work? And we'll try to put it on device manufacturers so that technically that should be safer, but the way that they're, and especially the way that they're trying to craft penalties, the way that they're trying to do it is kind of technically not possible. For anyone who's interested, I don't have a link. I'll try to add a link in the show notes. I would recommend you read up on California's process because I feel like we've got an idea in the right place. I feel like we don't want other organizations collecting information and user identifiable information and sensitive government documents on people and putting that in a bucket that can be rated, that can be sold, that can be hacked. I agree with a lot of the kind of libertarian philosophy that maybe in the reality that we live in today, that the safest possible method of verifying someone as a user for a potentially grown-up website or some type of age-related circumstance. I believe the safest way to do that would be to come up with a process where it's kind of like, I'm sorry, I'm saying like a lot, and I think it's because I'm tired and I live in Southern California. Like, you know, I look at what we did with driver's license in our phone wallet app. The argument is actually really sound. If I go to a TSA checkpoint, they need to see a verification that I am who I say I am. They don't need all of my other personal information on that driver's license, but I still have to hand over the driver's license and let them take a look at it and then look at me, and like they could get my home address, right? I feel when we're talking about websites, the hardware we own collecting our personal information in a little encrypted vault. And then the website says, hey, this user is trying to engage with content that we have all decided is rated at a certain level. Does the person qualify? And our little trust bucket can say yes. Complete sentence. YES period. Doesn't need to give them my date of birth. Doesn't need to give them a credit card number. Doesn't need to give them my driver's license number. In my Star Trek utopian future, I would love for that to be the interaction. I have a little encrypted box, and depending on what the website needs, we can control, very tactically strict, we can control the verification and what information goes to that website. I don't believe that's what we're going to get. I think on-device verification for things like age, unfortunately, I think is just going to be this free-for-all of user data. And it's not going to fix these problems. And maybe it's like a tiny bit better than if I upload a photo of my face and then a copy of my driver's license and have to give a credit card number to a third-party organization that then's going to trust verify so that I can get into this website. That to me is hot garbage and should be completely illegal, but it's not because companies get to make money on that stuff. the next best worst option is my phone has all that information, and for some reason that website trusts my phone, and the phone can say good to go. And then in other situations, like maybe there is something that requires some kind of physical verification, they can just say yes, verified, done. But we need more. Like, can you upload like their photo? Don't need to. You've said we trust this interaction, and we're gonna go ahead and say this user is good to go. But what if it's one of their kids? Too bad. They stole their parents' phone, and while dad was sleeping and hung over, he put his thumb on the fingerprint sensor. That's a parenting issue. That shouldn't be a government regulation issue. We've created the system where we verify the device. The device says the age of the user is appropriate. Then it's on the parent to not let their kid get into illegal activities. That's as good as we can do. I feel like that's where we should stop. But unfortunately, I feel like California's law is not going to achieve that. And that's what makes me sad, is like, I think we could take it that one step further, actually. I think we could actually come up with like an even more brutal example of regulatory actions in this space. But again, like I was saying, it's kind of an impossible ask the way that they're asking for it to be done, like on Linux systems. Ubuntu is going to try and participate with this current California flavor of age verification, and I don't think it's going to go the way they say it will. So it's just tough. Yeah, Jose, exactly. The problem is what happens when this data leaks, and it has happened with so many other companies in the past. That's why I really bristle at the idea that a third-party data broker can be the solution for these kinds of verification projects, and we just have to hope that they don't get hacked or have a leak or just a data dump of plain text information with all of our personal info on it. Okay, let me give you that copy of my driver's license. Like, look at what you can do in Google Wallet. I'm not a big fan of Google tracking all of our information and wrecking our website traffic, but there's a good idea there, and I want an encrypted open standard that can be audited, that is not in control of like a Google or an Apple or a Microsoft or an Amazon, that then we can say this verifies the piece of information that you're asking for. And that's all you need to know. You don't need a full copy of their driver's license. We're telling you this person is old enough to use your product. You don't need the address. We're telling you this person is a citizen of this country. You asked about this. That's all you get, was literally that one point that you asked for. And that's the promise of like a digital ID, of like a digital wallet with your ID in it, is you tap at TSA, and TSA gets literally just the byte of data that they needed to say, please proceed. And that's what I want. And unfortunately, I don't think California is going to get it for us. So one more AI story, just so we can wrap this up. I do have one other news block story, because we were going to talk about Google too. And then we can get into some gadget conversation. We can talk about them MacBooks and then Viva La camera sensors. And we're wrapping up our trio. So we've got to backtrack a little bit. We were just talking about OpenAI. We did talk a little bit about regulators, so I'm glad that we got a question about California regulating, because we do a lot right and we get a lot wrong here in California. Getting back to OpenAI, this story coming from Axios, written up by, is this Ina or Ina Fried or Fried? I'm pretty sure it's Fried. I have mispronounced both of your names and I apologize. OpenAI delays ChatGPT adult mode. And if you're just listening to the podcast, they've got this really cute GIF of like a XXX neon sign. Like the main image for this article looks like it should be in some red light district. It's really funny. And I wonder if that was generated by AI. Anyway, OpenAI said on Friday it is again delaying the adult mode for ChatGPT as it focuses on personalization and other priorities. OpenAI had pledged to allow erotica and other content once it had a system in place to verify whether users were adults. The company had said in December it was moving the launch to the first quarter of this year while it worked to improve its age estimation systems. This is hilarious. I hate. I went on this kind of pattern. Maybe it was last week or maybe it was like 2 or 3 weeks ago. Just talking about like, oh, what if you had this way that you could make movies watchable at home? And I was cheekily describing the fight between VHS and Betamax. I'm not going to do that whole pattern here again. I'm just saying we have this thing where we totally demonize and villainize adult entertainment, and then it seems to still dictate the course of future technologies. I appreciate people who do business with my channel on patreon.com/somegadgetguy. The methods and the platforms that we have for supporting a creator, and sort of crowdfunding projects would not exist if the adult entertainment industry hadn't faced the kinds of problems it had working with the traditional banking system. I mean, we still would have gotten to like online commerce and these tools that we have to move money around, like that still would have happened. But the way that we were able to scale this up and create these kinds of solutions, solve some of the problems, literally was born out of this industry sort of being denied traditional banking opportunities. And I get to benefit from that progress as someone who has a Patreon project. We used to joke about having an OnlyJuans, but legit, we'll say respect. There was a need in the market for some other type of payment processing service, and a legit organization that could handle money going back and forth between a creator and an audience member, and that helped evolve the systems that we all use today. We just got done talking about how NVIDIA radically scaled back their future investments in OpenAI and might not invest any more in OpenAI. We just saw Oracle is laying off tens of thousands of employees, and banks aren't looking to invest in future data center expansion. And we keep pointing to adult entertainment as one of the solutions that will helpfully find monetization for AI. So all of these people out there saying, oh, AI is going to replace all these jobs, or AI is going to, you can make your employees more productive, which in middle management speak means you can fire a bunch of your employees because your remaining employees will be more productive. So you need fewer employees, not they're all more productive so you don't have to work them 60 hours a week. That's never what these people do to justify their own existence in middle management and in the lower levels of the C-suites. No, we were expecting that all of the desperate people out there, all of the people sort of thirsty for content like this, were going to be exceedingly high, heavy users of that product, subsidizing like all of the people just doing general AI searches, which is still so stupid that we're using language models for search. They were going to be the whales. They were going to be the heavy paying customers because, ooh, now they can make whatever they might imagine. How exciting. And OpenAI can't even get to that point. Like, look at what happened when Grok at Twitter started kind of freeing up some of those restrictions on how you could get Grok to do really gross things with people's photos. Like someone upload a photo and then you could tell Grok what to do with that photo. Tee-hee-hee, tee-hee-hee-hee. Oh, how titillating. So there is no way to kind of bumper guard that, safeguard it, and not have countries investigating you for some really horrific business practices. So OpenAI is hitting the brakes on this. I'm glad they're not putting out the awful product. We know this is going to be a terrible product that's probably going to harm people, right? Both users and other people that their likeness might get used in this product against their consent. We can't even get the adult part of AI working to try and pad some additional monetization. When we can't even get the adult stuff working, what business model do we have? And why are we pouring OpenAI $150 billion? And just think about what we could do with $150 billion in tech. Think about the infrastructure we could lay with $150 billion. Think of all of the underserved communities that we could get up on fiber lines with $150 billion. Think of all the schools that could just get updated for basic functioning Wi-Fi so the students don't have to drive out to the parking lot of a McDonald's to eat their product and get some Wi-Fi so they can do their homework. You want to talk about no kid left behind? We said, hey, you know what? Like laptops too early, too young, it's not a competitive advantage. But with $150 billion in infrastructure and tech, we can do a much better job of facilitating educational opportunities to move our students into a 21st century economy. And instead, we're watching OpenAI fail to make the juicy stuff. And we all have to pretend like, oh yeah, but I mean, it's like AI's the future and everyone's making money in the investments, and look at NVIDIA. NVIDIA's our entire economy right now. I guess it's working, but it's totally not. And I could not be more disappointed in our industry. Like every day I wake up just like, hey man, there's gonna be some fun stuff. All right, AI. Hey, we're gonna do some cool stuff. I've got like this awesome workstation here, but no one could afford to buy the RAM for it. Hey, there's going to be a new phone coming out and it has fewer features than the phone it's replacing. I just can't, man. From Brian Glaze, adult industry ruining things again. This was so funny, Brian. The adult industry actually is probably in a better situation right now because AI keeps failing to replace their industry. Like, everyone keeps talking about the inevitability of AI displacing content like this. And it's kind of not. From JGJ, I've seen that image on Slate articles that are also risque. Like, yeah, I'm not saying it's like tantalizing or anything. It just looks, I just like the effect that it looks like neon. That to me just, it kind of tickles. Like, I just think that's funny. And also because we always have to do this press thing. I get so many press releases for products that I absolutely cannot talk about on my YouTube channel. And sometimes I get really morbidly curious, like, what is that thing? What does it do? But the expectation would be like, oh, do you want to review it? No, I can't. This is literally like the end of my channel if I, sort of accepted that proposition and made content on that product. But it's still like, oh, that's wild. But it's just so funny to me that we have to be so tame. We have to be so safe when we're discussing these types of topics, these types of situations. And like literally the image we've come up with is like, it throws back to the seediest, skeeziest days of like films being in actual movie theaters that you had to go to if you wanted to consume said content. And that has like no bearing on the market that we have today, but it's just like burned into our collective osmosis memories that that's what we used to do to kind of signal a certain type of content in this kind of location. It's just funny to me that that's what we now use as sort of a visual metaphor on a website that has no relation to any of that distribution from the past. It's just, again, I think it's crazy. I think it's kind of funny. From Lelwani, I work in the payment risk management field. Even if you make a new service, there's functionally like 2 to 3 companies that determine content for every payment processor on Earth. And without being on board with them, you likely cannot access the payment services of anyone who is compliant. I know the traditional money managing payment distribution services have been kind of engaged in this battle between platforms. Like even OnlyFans tried to say, hey, we're going to make our platform safe for everybody, and we're going to try and walk away from adult content, which was the only reason to do business with OnlyFans. So it's just kind of funny to me because everyone has this kind of arm's length kind of stinky face. Oh, I mean, we find that super distasteful. We'll totally take all your money up to a point. But if it gets a little too distasteful, well, then no, oh, we got to do business somewhere else. Like, we're playing this game. And again, it's kind of in the legitimization of that style of entertainment, that kind of content. Sure, I understand there are a lot of arguments. We have generations of people that have been harmed through the consumption of that content. I worry, just like how I rail against gambling mechanics in video games, that I think we need to have some more grown-up conversations about how we handle ourselves, how we do business with organizations, how we look at this content, how we sort of marginalize it and make it really salacious, but then that turns it into a taboo, right? There are all these cultural conversations that I think we stop at just the mention of the conversation, and then we never really get to the philosophy or an examination on how to make this situation better for people. And that keeps a whole bunch of people locked in a holding pattern where they're continuously hurting themselves or getting hurt by the dissemination of this idea of content. But then there's a lot of money on it, so, you know, gotta make money. Ron GKP, Tracy Lords runs the world. But she tried to get out, man. She as far as I knew, wasn't she in Blade? Isn't she like that first femme vampire in Blade, and the rave and the nightclub scene? Like, you know, again, she tried to go legit. Oh, George, I've been following your work, man. Some of the recent posts, again, this is so silly, like, because I'm not really on Facebook or anything. I've been sort of cyber stalking you on LinkedIn. So just catching some of the little shorts and stuff like that, and your more recent work, kind of talking and interviewing people, has been phenomenal. George is the tech I would turn all of the voice actors towards in Southern California when they would say, "Hey, I really want to make a legit home recording solution for my voiceover work." George is the man. So I don't work in that field as regularly as I used to, but I still. Like, George is one of the few I really try to keep up with, because it's great information. If you're ever interested in like voiceover, home recording, you want to set up a podcast, he's got good data on like what's going to capture your voice well and make you sound good. But yeah, thanks for dropping in, man. I always love seeing your face. I always like seeing your name pop up when we're getting kind of deep in the nerdy weeds on some of this stuff. I'm way behind on the chat here. Yeah, JGJ. Meanwhile, there are dedicated channels regarding intimacy and relationships that can use analogies and visual metaphors. And think about like all the hoops people have to jump through. Like, we just want to have a grown-up conversation. We need to have a section. Again, not appropriate for kids. We want to have a place where we can discuss some of this stuff and not use like coded, weird, silly, sensitive, analogous words and phrases. Like, just have like a medical textbook conversation. You can't do that on social media. And I understand why social media is protecting their platform, but doesn't that sound like social media exists in this give and take place where it's free speech in some things, but not free speech in others, and you need to make sure all speech from Russian bots weaponizing misinformation is protected, but if someone wants to have a grown-up a healthy conversation about intimacy, oh, well, we can't have that on our platform. Now we've got to moderate. But wait a minute. If you're moderating this, why can't you moderate misinformation? Why are we playing this shell game, moving things around? That's hilarious. Except it's so darn sad. Lil Wani reminds me of the scene Taxi Driver, the way you describe it. Great movie, by the way. I don't know how I feel about being compared to was it a Bickle? Taxi Driver? I haven't seen that movie in a while, but it made me really uncomfortable. I know who you're talking about, and just look at the scenes in the movie, but it's like anything that kind of attaches me to the ideas of that film. Maybe I'm not making the best life choices that I could be making. Um, Bob, Bob Wisniewski. What is up, Bob? A few folks are popping in from the Facebook. I don't log into my Facebook anymore, and I miss like some of the healthy conversations that us nerds used to get into. Bob, so happy to see your name pop up too. I am promising. I promise you, we are getting on to talking about some hardware. I'm just going to mention this, and I'm not going to detail the whole article. I have been a broken record on AI search is bad for us. It is purposely designed to make you interact more with the search. Google, in briefings and in disclosures, we are talking about a company that doesn't openly admit, but tangentially admits that having the best search is not always the best thing for their business model. Because the more you spend time on thegoogle.com, the more ads they can serve you, the more monetization they can achieve. They do not have a vested interest in giving you the best results, the best product. And now with AI search, we've been seeing these stories. A website here will publish all of their readership stats from 2023 to the end of 2025. And around 2024, the end of 2024, we see this massive drop in their readership. And we can attribute that to AI search going to the website, scraping the information off that website, and then handing it to someone in the search results with like a token little link at the bottom of a page that you have to expand that no one's going to click on. Oh, but maybe that's just that one site. All these other blogs seem to be doing fine. Maybe they just need to make better content. Oh, your evergreen content wasn't going to last forever. That's on you. Google needs to be at the tip of the spear for new business models. And that was always a lie. Google is ripping off all the humans who really make this stuff. It financially benefits them, and they're trying to hide behind the fact that AI is reorganizing words, but the patterns of words were all stolen from human authors. We're not using language like stealing, theft. Oh, you can't prove that it's a copyright issue. But where did the AI bot get that data, get that information? If I do a new tutorial for how to enable developer options, and my favorite one is how to automatically set your phone so that when you plug in on a USB cable on a Windows PC, it'll just show as open file storage, right? It's one of my favorite little mini tutorials. There was a ton of traffic for it, and then it just died. Well, I'm sure AI has scraped a couple of these different articles, how-tos, little shorts and videos and reels, and now if someone searches for that, they can just regurgitate the actual steps. No human gets the benefit of their work putting together a good guide on how to do that. So this article comes by way of Futurism, written up by Joe Wilkins. Evidence grows that Google's AI overviews have eviscerated the media industry. Oh no, did I not? There was another story. You know what? I'm going to include another article too. This was shared on the Discord, and I found another one that actually gave us some better bar graphs. I really should have double checked this story. But some publications have fared worse than others. None of them are thriving. Mashable fared the best, losing a grim 30% of its web traffic between its peak and January of 2026. That's a lot, but it's nothing compared to Wired, which lost 62% of its traffic, or the cluster of outlets including How To Geek, The Verge, and ZDNet, which each lost over 85% of their web traffic over the 2-year period. From 2024 to 2026, The Verge, a website I do not appreciate and reference often for their editorial style, but if you're a fan of how The Verge produces their content, 85% of their traffic gone over 2 years. Do we think that is an earnest, organic reaction to how The Verge produces content? I don't think so. I'm mad because Google is making me defend The Verge, who does not deserve to lose 85% of their audience so that Google can make cutesy little AI summaries of all of their hard work. Humans, who I rarely agree with, made stuff. And Google said, look what we have now. Thanks for making it. Now our search page gets all the traffic, and hopefully more people will click on our advertising links, which generates us an incredible amount of revenue. And Google's revenue has been going up. So they are literally profiting from the work of humans that they barely credit adequately. And they made me defend The Verge. I can't be any less snarky about how all of that went down. There was another website that really ranked all of these tech publications and tech websites. And like, I think the average is something ridiculous. Like, traffic is down 40% or 50% from 2 years ago across the entire tech commentary industry. And none of these publications are trying to take it to Google. Because, well, you know, if you step on Google too hard and you're a tech publication and you depend on access to Google executives and Google events and Google products and Google hardware, and, you know, if you get too spiky against Google, maybe Google has to kill like your Gmail account, right? I mean, you don't have to do business with Google. You can go do business with anyone else. And maybe it's time that we cut ties. Oh, if you're too critical, I mean, you don't have to come to the next Pixel launch. That's totally okay. You can just wait for the Pixel to be an exhausted topic on Google Trends. And when you buy the phone, like all the rest of the consumers do, that's when you can make your content on the Pixel. When it's way later than all the people we've approved to get early access and to go to all the events. It's not any kind of manipulation of the media. It's just, you want to work with people you want to work with. And it's totally earnest and totally fair. And, some people criticize Google and get to go to the events. I mean, they still say all the nice things and repeat all the talking points that Google wants them to say, but they earnestly believe in those talking points. So it's just a total meritocracy. It's totally fair. That's where we're at. How to Geek. You know how many times I've looked stuff up on How to Geek? 85% of their traffic is gone. That is a website where humans put together silly little tutorials and stuff, but you know what? That content was helpful to a lot of people. It was so helpful, Google is now profiting off of all their hard work. Because AI does not know how to enable the developer options on my OnePlus phone. Where to find the build number and tap on it a bunch of times and then put in my PIN. Like, AI doesn't know any of that. It has to steal it from humans. So I've already said too much on this. I'm going to take a drink of coffee. Let me read through some of these comments here too, but we got to move on to some MacBook chatter because I got to start talking about hardware and actually some hardware that I'm kind of excited to see. And I know I just said Apple, but, Okay. And Bob Wisniewski was saying, I love that Apple is making entry-level laptops. From Gabaletta, I currently had to explain to my 8-year-old daughter the dangers and trappings of adult content, but that is not inherently bad. It's a nuanced conversation after she got caught looking at this stuff. And again, I want the onus on a lot of this to be on parents. I'm not trying to be Mr. Libertarian, stay out of, all of my interactions with my kid and I'll let them be free and all this other stuff. I actually do want some regulations that give us parents better tools and more adequate protections. And I feel like we as a society need to address some of these conversations beyond just saying we need to have a conversation and then we never have the conversation. But it's still like wild to me how often, for me, the big thing is gaming. And I'll talk to some of these parents and like, your kid has 2,000 friends on Roblox. Do they? Do you know who they're talking to? Your 9-year-old is having these long conversations, giving them up all kinds of personal information. Where do you live? I'm an 8-year-old in Tulsa. Oh, that's cool. I'm in Southern California. Roblox, Roblox, Roblox. Like, do you know who they're talking to? Oh, well, if I try to take it away from them, they just get so upset. Okay, now I need to talk to regulators. You won't do your job. Okay, anyway. WX Romer, been watching YouTube all morning, and thankfully I stumbled onto this channel again. I feel better already. Thanks, chat and Juan. I love that you enjoyed it. From WX Romer, breaking news: Juan defends The Verge. Man, I actually did get into an argument with a former senior editor at The Verge once at a press event, and I was not my best self. I don't know. Maybe at some point when I feel like I need to make amends to people, I might write that person an apology or something. But it's still like when there's an obvious slant to a popularity metric, it makes me crazy. And I see like why I vibe so much with Steve over at Gamers Nexus, because we don't always get stuff right. And I've put my foot in my mouth so many times, but I get lit up and I get angry, my heart's on my sleeve, and I am directly commenting on something that I care about, and I'm hot in the moment, and I should have taken a step and just cooled off, but it's like point after point after point, and I'm mad as heck, and I can't take it anymore, right? And so I get it. I get where Steve goes running in, and he's gotten some biggies not correct, and he's drummed up some drama that he probably shouldn't have. But how can you not care when you're this passionate about it, when this is so much a part of your life, it's not just a funsies little hobby. It's like you can see this helps people and this hurts people. And how can we not have strong opinions on helping people or hurting people? And I feel that way about how manipulated our media is in tech. And I definitely took that out on an editor at The Verge. Was not good. So again, maybe this article is just comeuppance. Like, okay, Juan, you've done this and you've been really angry about that. Now we're gonna make you say something to defend that. It's just awful. Let me get this out of the way. From Sports Fan Reacts, Juan, I'm keeping my Pixel 8 for a couple more years and getting a battery replacement instead of a Pixel 10a, since I mostly use my Pixel 8 for social media and filming videos for my YouTube channel. I love anything that's keeping your functional gadgets out of landfills. Like, do it. That makes me so happy. Unfortunately, the money didn't make sense for us to repair my wife's Pixel 8. I was looking at maybe a battery replacement, and then her screen got a purple line running through the middle of it, and it was just getting to be too much. And thankfully, we are in a very privileged position where if I bork a phone, I maybe have 5 on my desk that I can just pop a SIM card into and get on with my life. And so we did that for Marie. But in any other situation or any other circumstance, we were really looking at how can we keep this phone running longer, and it just completely got away from us. From Jose, I've noticed how many I have noticed how many people have become reliant on AI search because it's easier and to the point. So while I agree that it gets to the point, it should credit where it got the info, who made said article, and get the link first. Plus, I think this is a time where government government interaction should happen because some websites deserve a set amount of money of the revenue Google gets from that interaction. We let them just do it before we said, hey, you need to credit work, and you need to financially contribute to the action you're performing that reduces their monetization. And that's what I said at the beginning of this. It's so frustrating that we're still playing this game of, well, we don't know. You can't regulate AI just yet. Maybe your regulations will stop it from doing really good things. So we just let them do awful things until we have broken so many functional systems that then we say, you know what? Yeah, Google should probably chip in. Like, that should have been from the beginning. The second they said, hey, what this does is summarize the information that's available online. Oh, no. No, 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 no. Are you trying to say that that's like a fair use kind of thing? You are displacing traffic. Read commentary and critique, clearances for commentary and critique. If the intent of your media is to supplant the original and displace traffic and monetization to the original, you probably don't have a good faith, fair use argument. That's why a review that's like 2 hours long that explains the whole plot and does reactions and barely talks about the movie beyond just regurgitating the plot, and then at the end someone goes, it was pretty good, I liked it, it could have been better if they made it better and that actor acted better. That is an attempt at supplanting someone watching the original media. That is not fair use. I am so strict on this interpretation of fair use. It's not transformative. It is not instructional. It is not using this as an educational opportunity. It is literally, I made a 2-hour video diary where I just, and then he said this, and then she went, whoa, and then they had a fight scene, and then they made out, and then this happened, and the music was good, and I like it. Like, that's not fair use. It's really not. It drives me crazy. And we're letting Google just kind of get away with monetizing other people's work. From Hassam, I've been really liking the neutral and rightfully negative tone for the S26 Ultra from most big YouTubers. Most is definitely doing some lifting there. I've been so disappointed in Samsung for years. I'm glad that other people are finally starting to at least get on the, we'll serve them the softest of mild criticisms and critiques, while we also put our affiliate links for people to buy the new phones in the video description. Let me take a drink of coffee here real quick. So I want to pull a little bit of a bait and switch. We are going to talk about MacBooks. One of the things that I want to point out, and guess what I'm not going to do? I'm not going to summarize this article for you. I'm going to talk about some of the things in this article, but I would like you to go to Notebook Check and check out their write-up on the new MacBook Air 15 with the M5 chip. The title of their article, very powerful, fanless, and without competition. So I disagree with the notion that it's just without competition. I'm a big fan of ARM chips. I have my Surface laptop over here on the side. This is the best laptop I've ever owned. I love this hardware. Now that it's getting just over a year old, it is definitely showing where some of the chip strategy could have been a bit beefier, especially like GPU compute. But this for me has been such a critical talking point. I've been talking about phone-style chips in consumer-facing computer and laptop products since I was at Newegg, and since before I was at Newegg, showing desktop modes on phones. Yes, it comes with some compromises. A lot of the time that you're going to make this phone or tablet style product, it means like the RAM is probably going to be soldered in, the solid state storage is probably going to be soldered in. It removes some of the upgradability. You kind of need to buy above what your needs are in the moment so that you can kind of pace it out longer. It doesn't have to be that way. Like, for example, my Surface is kind of due a storage upgrade. Guess what I don't want to buy right now? I really don't want to buy a stupid expensive SSD. I don't want to have to field that right now. But Notebook Check has done a really good job of running the new M5 chip through its paces. Now, this is a MacBook Air, and I agree, some of these cons are a bummer for folks like us. If you're really nerdy, you're not afraid of cracking open the computer case and putting in new components or swapping a drive or adding more RAM, it is frustrating. Like one of their first con is almost no maintenance options. Their second con is it's only got a 60 hertz display, which again, I'm using my Surface. I really love plugging in like 120 hertz refresh rate monitors into my Surface. It's really cool. I like it. It's real smooth. Another con, it's only got a 1-year warranty. And then their last one is webcam without Face ID, low resolution for photos and videos. And that one I have a harder time caring about because I feel like if you really care about camera quality, we are getting to a point where it's easier to kind of like use your phone for some of those situations. Sometimes you can literally use your phone as the webcam for your computer. But even in Android, we're starting to see where you can plug a camera into a phone and have like better optical quality. Like if I wanted to run this stream from an Android tablet and plug it in to the capture card I use for my mirrorless camera, you wouldn't know it would look exactly the same. But what I've been so frustrated by, in Windows land, we've had incredible mobile desktops with an Intel or an AMD chip, a discrete GPU, an AMD GPU, or most likely an NVIDIA GPU. And those things are incredibly powerful, just monster workstation performance, gaming performance, but they're not really portable computers in the way that we think about a laptop. They are a desktop that you can fold shut, pick up, move to another location, put down, open, plug that into the wall so it's connected to electricity, and then you've got the full power ready to go. What I've been so frustrated by, and even to an extent, like I wish Notebook Check would make some of their tests even more explicit. I take this insanely powerful laptop and I unplug the power. The entire system shifts into a lower power mode that the battery can actually sustain. So my video rendering, radically slower. Use video editing, substantially slower. Gaming performance just falls off a cliff. So at once we get to say, this is like such an incredibly powerful computer. And then when they test the battery life, they only test things like how long can it stream video at like 1/4 brightness? Isn't that so amazing? The new Intel chip can run for like 20 hours. But they didn't do their DaVinci Resolve video editing render test on battery life. That to me is a big problem. So the numbers on the new M5 look good. I really hope you'll go and check out this article, this write-up, this review. I'm never gonna buy a MacBook Air, but what the MacBook Air does is it encourages still just that next step of conversation. We're still waiting on products to ship with the new Snapdragon chip. We know NVIDIA is likely gonna try and push a PC consumer-facing computer chip sometime this year. That's the rumor mill. I'm feeling like that's pretty confident. NVIDIA has to be looking at diversifying, and NVIDIA with success. Like NVIDIA has had a lot of success working with Nintendo. They need to still keep some tie-in, some hooks on the consumer market. If AI kind of goes bust before they can convince everyone that robots are the next big thing, they need to have some consumer-facing strategy still in operation. I do think it's likely they'll come out with a PC chip in 2026. It might not make it into products in 2026, but we've got Qualcomm. MediaTek's Companion chip is awesome in that upper mid-tier. As a medium-tier chip, like in that Lenovo Chromebook, it is so good. You want a low power, quiet, high performance system, that's exactly where I want to see some of these systems playing at. But I just need to point out the M5 numbers, the M5 scores. I'm not going to put them on screen because I just got done railing at Google. Go to Notebook Check, read through their write up. They're giving this a really high score. This is a very good grade for a MacBook. And even with some of these cons, this is a very high level of performance. And this system, under full load, tops out at just under 40 watts. That is so flipping rad. I have a 1200 watt power supply in my workstation here. And I think my ancient, it's a really old Threadripper, can still probably beat any laptop in a number of the higher level multi-core CPU tests, blah, blah, blah. I've got a 4070 Ti. It's going to be pretty high performance for GPU, blah, blah. It's a 1200 watt power supply. But there are so many things this laptop, without a fan, is going to be able to do, and probably do faster than what I can do on this massive workstation that I use. And the whole system tops out just under 40 watts. That's peak. The most power it can use is around 40 watts. I don't know why we still have to keep playing this stupid game of like, oh, but what about compatibility? And oh, there are no programs for ARM computers. And like, all of that's a lie. My Surface 7 is pretty much complete. I can play almost any game that doesn't require anti-cheat software that hasn't been approved for ARM. Like Epic's anti-cheat. Like, we're getting Fortnite. If you need Fortnite on a Qualcomm-powered Windows laptop, I'm pretty sure you can do it. I don't know. I don't play Fortnite. I think it's dumb. But when I plug this laptop in, it does get a little bit more powerful when I do something like run Handbrake and I want to like transcode a video. So like, say I take a Blu-ray rip and I want to turn that into an MKV file that can live on my Plex server. My own library of videos and movies online. Plugged in, the laptop is, I can't remember the exact numbers, but I want to say maybe it's 10%. It's under, it might be under 10%. It's somewhere around 10% more powerful. And I unplug it, and it does get a little less powerful, but it's still crunching video decently well for this kind of chip in a laptop. My video rendering scores in DaVinci Resolve are exactly the same. So I edit a whole bunch of video, I push render, and I don't need to stay plugged in. The video rendering speeds, not as fast as my workstation, still exactly the same. And that's what I really care about. As I was leaving CES from Las Vegas, I had 3 videos that I was just cutting up. I did kind of like a longer, hey, these were my experiences at CES. And that one I did take to my laptop to edit. I didn't try and do the whole edit on my phone. It was a really long video. So I took it to my laptop. My phone would have rendered it faster. But I was in an airport, I was at a terminal. I didn't have a plug to plug my laptop in. I edited the whole video and rendered the whole video. And it was the same speed it would have been plugged in. Now, if I'd had an Intel laptop with a discrete GPU, like an NVIDIA GPU, it would have definitely rendered that video faster if I could have plugged it in. Without plugging it in, it was probably slower than my Surface 7 was going to render it, and the battery would not have lasted. I've used, like, especially like the Creator laptops from MSI, and the second you unplug, it's like you have a completely different computer. It's like you go from a turbocharged 8-cylinder to like a fuel-efficient 4-cylinder, right? Because the battery literally cannot sustain that level of power draw. The system is going to start running hotter than the fans can spin up and keep electricity moving through the system. Like, it's just not a good combo. So the folks at Notebook Check, MacBook Air 15 M5, I am not going to do business with Apple I still kind of feel like I shouldn't overly recommend people do business with Apple if you're concerned about consumer lock-in and anti-competitive business practices and all that other stuff that I talk about politically and I like to soapbox on. I feel Apple is directly responsible for some of the worst business practices that harm their most loyal consumers, their most loyal customers. But the thing I've just been consistently impressed by is their M series chips. It's just such a good chip, and it's one of the few things we're seeing that actually puts some pressure on Intel and AMD, and likewise is encouraging companies like Qualcomm and MediaTek and maybe Nvidia to earnestly get in this race. If Apple can do this with a style of chip that is very similar to what they put in their tablets, Qualcomm can do it too, and MediaTek can do it too. And the early experiences with those types of products, as we've gotten into the Snapdragon Elite, the Snapdragon X series, has been really good. So if you don't want to do business with Apple, we can at least credit Apple has helped us move this forward in a way that Intel and AMD could not do on their own. And that's pretty cool. I like that a lot. Let me just see if there is any. I do want to talk about the Neo. Also, George Whittam is saying $499 educational price for a usable MacBook. Chromebooks needed competition, and students deserve better software and privacy. And George, and like what I've been excited by. Unfortunately, the school my daughter goes to is going back to Chromebooks. They went Ubuntu, and that made me so crazy happy. My daughter came home. She's got this little, I think it was an Asus or an Acer, I can't remember. She had this little laptop, opened it up, and I was like, whoa, wait a minute, this is not Chrome OS. She's like, no, I just do Google. And you open Google, and it takes us to the school website, and that's where we do all our work, and it's Google Docs and all this stuff. And like, it was just a full build. Ubuntu had GIMP, had Audacity, had Shotcut. It was like just a fully loaded Ubuntu laptop. Flipping loved it. Started showing her like, hey, if you do sudo apt-get, you can do this. Hey, check this out. And open up LibreOffice. You can write documents in LibreOffice that your teachers can't see because all they know what to do is check for Google Docs. Like, just beautiful. Unfortunately, and I feel like because the teachers really couldn't get a handle on what these machines could legit do, they're going back to Chromebooks now, which is making me kind of sad. Let me scroll down here. There are way more comments. I've just got to jump in and start talking here. JGJ. So the correction to the butterfly keyboard is the magic keyboard. It's magic. Some criticisms of people that kind of defend companies like Samsung. JGJ. MacBook Neo because Apple doesn't want to use the word netbook. And Vonnegut Rosewater. I get so frustrated when reviewers just say, all day battery life. That's a terrible metric. The batteries get worse over time. Again, if you're launching a product and when it's brand new, you're like, oh yeah, this can last you about a day, and then you just charge it every night. Well, you get 100 charge cycles in, it's not going to work very well after that. George is really on the Neo. I love this. Neo is the story, but it's not on notebook check yet. So, Ripso is saying I cannot get excited for Windows or Mac OS. It's all about Bazite for me. From JGJ, are there any Intel Arc GPUs on Intel laptops? I believe the newest integrated graphics are based on Arc architecture, but not in the way that a dedicated, discrete Intel Arc GPU would function in like a desktop. I don't believe there's anything at that level that's built mobile or built into a laptop. Yeah, some criticisms. Michael C2 is saying, yeah, it's clever for them to use the $499 price point, which is not available to consumers. It's great for the headline. School districts are getting Chromebooks probably at 20% that price. I would be shocked if the district, because we see just like the stacks of Chromebooks that are left over at the end of school years where students just destroy those machines. And knowing the build that goes into like an Acer student laptop, I'd be shocked if it was a quarter the price of this new Neo. But I do want to get into the Neo. Actually, you know what? Just so I have like a visual, let me pull up the apple.com. Because I have a hot and cold on this. Just like I said, I really dig the M series ARM chips. It's stupid to say Apple Silicon, but I like that they're taking an ARM architecture and they're making a consumer-facing computer out of it that is remarkably high performance at low wattage. Performance per watt is the new sexy. I'm a big fan. So, but here's the Neo, and likewise, I am happy that the Neo exists to get people over this stupid idea of chip limitation. I would say since 2018, I've been trying to show people how much untapped compute power is in their phone. I think it was 2018 where I like did all of my remote show coverage and did vlogs and did podcasts all from a phone. I even made this cute little rig. I didn't have a full cage for it, but I made this cute little rig and I put my LG in there and I had microphones and I had lights and like I could walk around and it was on a Gorilla Pod. So I could have like a tripod or go to a handheld, like kind of a selfie stick. Like I did the entire show that way. I would walk around just holding this thing out there, talking to the camera. As soon as I was done talking, I'd cut up that video. It was ready to go as like a daily vlog of my experience on the show floor. But it never seemed to matter. The more I would show, here's all the cool computer things you can do with a phone, a bunch of people would come scurrying out of the woodwork like, oh, but that's not like what real people would do or serious or average consumers don't do that or like professionals would never try. And you're like, so then what are we doing? Every year, this chip gets 10% more this and 20% more that. Well, that's been stacking. That's been stacking since the Snapdragon 820. What was that, the Galaxy S7? And we're just going to say, like, that compute power doesn't matter? Oh, but you need it to buy so you can future-proof. No, shut up. Android 16 can run on a 3-year-old entry-level CPU. It might not run the bestest, but it can. If we got good support, good updates, good polish, it's a very low bar to run Android 16 on exceedingly low power hardware. So if you have like a premium tier chip from 2020, it's still directly competing against entry level phones today. So we have not eclipsed the performance needed to satisfy a very fluid and high performance user interface pocket communications device. So over the 6 years that we've gone from like Galaxy S10 to, or I guess Galaxy S20. We'll start at the S20. From Galaxy S20 to today, the chips in our phones now are directly competitive against mid-ranger laptops. If we believe all these benchmark scores, then there's no reason why we couldn't be running legit desktop grade software from the chips in our phones and tablets. That Companion in the Lenovo Chromebook is basically a modification of, I think, of a Dimensity 9400, last year's high-end phone chip. Some alterations to put it in the chassis of a laptop, less things that you need to enable, like all of the modems and radios, because you don't have a cell radio in that Lenovo, and it is an exceedingly high-performance Chromebook. Chromebook Plus. So Apple getting into this, I hate that it's like tech industry, tech media, and all the influencers won't take this idea seriously until Apple invents it. But we've been in this place for years now where we could have been enjoying consumer-facing products, much better performance per watt, higher performance with lower power draw, with better battery life. This always could have been a thing. But we had to sit here and pretend like our phones, well, those are phone computers. Phone computers are different than tablet computers and laptop computers and desktop computers. Phone computers can only do the phone computer things. Always could have been a thing. Look at this iterative update to Google's desktop mode in Android, and you plug it into another monitor, and you have a computer style interface. And in some ways, it's actually more full-fledged computer than getting a Chromebook. And you didn't have to buy a whole other computer. The computer was in your pocket all along. You didn't need that feather to fly, Dumbo. The flight was in you the whole time. But now Apple's invented it. So we can now acknowledge that there is a tier of performance that is still overkill powerful and more than adequate for a huge swath of the population. If you had an Apple A18 Pro, let me just pull up the tech specs. Why am I guessing? I don't sit here and memorize Apple stuff like I do PC and Android stuff. Yes, A18 Pro, I had that right. 6-core CPU with 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. That's probably gonna get murked by some of our more recent and slightly older premium tier phones. So if you spent $1,200 on a phone 2 years ago, your phone should still be able to hang with this $600 laptop. That doesn't sound exciting, except we've conditioned consumers to think laptops are somehow magically different in their compute performance. Laptops do laptop things, but compute power is compute power. So that could already be in your pants pocket right now. 2 performance cores and 4 efficiency cores. That's kind of the Qualcomm strategy. It's still technically an all big core design, but they've got 2 higher performance cores and then 6 medium performance cores. And that was a big jump for Qualcomm compute with the Snapdragon 8 Elite. That's where we're at. So this MacBook is actually gratifying. This is validating the thing I've been saying for about 8 years now, that you don't need to separate these ideas of performance. What we have to rail against are all the techies and influencers who are going to move the goalposts. See, now it's okay for there to be a lower performance MacBook at still a decently reasonable price. $600 is direct competition against Chromebook Plus. If you want cheap Chromebook, yeah, all day, every day, you can find like $200. It's a garbage system. It's going to be antiquated levels of performance, but it's going to be a basic web browser for you to do some surfing on. But if you want like the Companion, we're within $50 with this MacBook, and that's nuts. That's crazy. Neo is a direct competitor against Chromebook Plus. So now we can acknowledge this is still more compute power than all the average consumers need out there. This is still overkill performance. And our barrier, our threshold for entry is $600. That validates all of the conversations we've been trying to have. So someone wants to come out there and say, oh, but X Elite, that's too expensive for Qualcomm. X Plus, there's the new Snapdragon X2 Plus, and it doesn't have as good of gaming. and I want you to track. Try not to give them traffic. Try not to reward their goalpost moving and their lazy hot takes, but they're going to say this is good for most other people. It's not going to be the computer for you because you're a smart cookie that watches my tech videos. Don't worry about you, but like for your auntie, it's going to be great. But at the same time, then they'll also say, oh, but this isn't good enough in a Windows machine. It can't play I don't know, whatever. It can't play Marathon at 120 frames per second in 4K. Oh, it needs like a 5070 Ti Super Plus Max Edition Elemento Q. You can't do anything on this like mid-ranger Snapdragon chip. Oh, you can't. But like for a $700 computer, we're really going to say like, oh, it's not good enough. Oh gosh. And then this Apple is basically a tablet chip, and that's good. That's great. It's still overkill powerful for that auntie that needs to surf the web and do her shopping and pay her bills and scroll social media, maybe watch a movie on an airplane. See, it's so perfect for all those things. But all of the other computers that are made by other manufacturers who aren't Apple, who were making $400 to $700 computers that were doing these kinds of jobs, no, you need different things. They're not good or enough. So that's where I'm real pissy with the Neo. The Neo completely validates everything I've been saying for the last 8 years. I'm glad to see there is an option now that I think would make a lot of sense for some of the relatives in my family who I'll never be able to convince to get a Chromebook or a Windows machine, but they do not need a $1,000 MacBook Air. They do not need a MacBook Pro. I thankfully have something I can point them to. But also, all of these flippin' influencers who have been trashing what I feel is going to be the future of this consumer facing business model now get to like pat themselves on the back and say, oh, but we always knew and Apple could do it right. When Apple does it, it'll be the right way to do it. And you're like, no, that's garbage. I've got like my Robo Ancala down here that has been getting consistently more powerful with updates to Windows 11. And if there's a chip in a laptop that exists like a Core i5 or Core Ultra 5 or Core 5, whatever they're calling their chips now, like that's the level of performance I would get in something crazy sleek and slim with incredible battery life, which is what this MacBook is trying to do. So actually, no, I still have it down here. So here's my Robo Ancala. I'm going to trot this out again. This was a direct competitor to the Surface 9 SQ1, whatever they called that stupid Surface. Had the same Snapdragon chip in this. When it first came out, yeah, there were some performance issues when we were emulating x86 software. ARM native software ran great on this thing, and then Microsoft improved their emulation, and it was like I got a whole new level of performance. It was like I got a brand new chip in this tablet. Super, super sleek, slim tablet. When it was brand new, this whole kit that I'm holding here with a wireless keyboard that you could pop off and use as a wireless detached keyboard, metal frame, kickstand, and this cute little active pen stylus was $800. When I did my review on this, this was an $800 kit. Prices would fluctuate. Sometimes the tablet by itself was $1,000. Sometimes they had bundles and deals. But when I shot this, I might be misremembering. Maybe it was $1,000 all in. But I really feel like it was like keyboard and tablet was like 800 something. And it went on sales regularly. I would prefer this OLED tablet running Windows with a stylus and a wireless keyboard over a MacBook. MacBook's definitely going to be more powerful. That A18 Pro is a more powerful chip than what's in my Robo Ancala. What's in this tablet, though, is roughly as powerful as like an 11th or 12th gen Core i5. And if you're telling me that's not enough compute power to get you through the vast majority of daily computer interactions and experiences, then you have completely lost the pulse on the consumer market. The vast majority of computers out there are nowhere near the performance of the systems and the components that get the most traffic on YouTube. We all want to talk K series ultra processors and Max Plus, Q series whatevers and AMDs and Ryzen 9s and Threadrippers and all that really high end stuff. It's like going to a car dealership. I want to see that really sexy sports car, get up close to it, just kind of look at the lines, look at the interior, maybe even sit inside it. But when I buy that sedan, I'm driving home in the fuel efficient vehicle with all the safety features. And that's what people are doing with their computer purchases. So now, at least there's a premium economy sedan for Apple users to enjoy. Let's take a drink of coffee and get through some comments here. And yeah, we can wrap all this up. George, I hope I did it some justice, because again, I feel like if you're in Apple land, you're probably grossly overpaying. Either for, compute power you're not going to use, for features you might not need, but you have to buy in at whatever level Apple gives you. And this is, to me, some acknowledgement of the situations consumers are facing. And I don't think it's nearly as compromised an experience as some of the techies are trying to make it out to be. But it just rankles me so much that these solutions have existed for a bit. And Apple didn't invent this, and they're coming to this market. I'm glad they're coming to this market, but when were we ever going to acknowledge the companies that were doing good work in this space? Well, we weren't, because you won't make as much money on those videos. You'll always make more money telling Apple consumers not to buy anything until Apple invents something that's already been out there for a while. And that kills me, because that means Apple customers, Apple's most loyal, were the ones getting raked in the interim, where we didn't have this solution ready to go. You were going to go buy that iPad Pro with an A-series processor in it. Well, now you can buy a MacBook with an A-series processor. So who was out there buying $1,000 Apple tablets? Now you can get similar performance in a $600 notebook. Where were we in telling people, like, hey, what are your needs? Because, that $1,000 MacBook is probably not what you need. Oh, but you need Mac OS, and it's for creative people. All right, so I scrolled back up to JGJ's comment. From Ripso, my 2015 iMac, after 2 years, it had screen burn. The only IPS display I've ever seen that could burn. And apparently it was a big fault with that model. Warranty is only 1 year. Everyone else has like 3-year warranties, at least for their computers. And the cost of a repair was £1,200. Not worth it back then. Darcy is saying, just got an upgraded Dell Pro 14 Plus with integrated art graphics for work. So they do exist. I really have not kept up with Intel developments. I'm still in a weird place. Like, I want Intel to be more competitive, but I haven't seen a lot, and I haven't handled much. I really do need to try something like a dedicated ARC card at some point, and I just haven't. From Midnight State, 8 years using Chromebooks. I'm hoping the Neo will push better hardware for manufacturers. The software is great for my needs, but the hardware still feels underwhelming for long-term use. I don't know that I've handled a Chromebook that I've liked as much. So I like the Lenovo. It is a powerful system, but I'm with you. It feels like there have been some build quality compromises to arrive at a lower price point. And considering the mid-tier price for a Chromebook Plus, I'm okay with an exchange, that idea. But I don't think I've really liked the build on a Chromebook since the Pixelbook Go. I really liked what the Pixelbook Go brought to the table. It felt not like the most premiumist laptop ever, but it felt like just such a really well-built system. And my wife will still bring it out of retirement from time to time. She just wants to write out something. She doesn't want to use her work laptop. She'll go to town on that thing. Like, it has been such a champ. Banged up, bruised. My daughter spilled stuff in it. She like scribbled in crayon on the speaker, so there's still like chunks of crayon in the speaker grates. Like, that thing was not treated well, and it's still alive and kicking today. That to me has kind of been the high watermark for Chromebook build quality. John Gao. It's really funny looking back on Phil Schiller mocking old Windows laptops with a mix of USB 2 and 3 ports. Yeah, and Michael C2, it seems like Google hasn't released a high-end Chromebook in a long time, like the Lenovo Plus or whatever with 8 gigs of RAM, but none of them i7 16 gig Dragonfly ones were refreshed since 2022. I don't think we should look to x86 for the future of Chromebook. Chrome OS is now going to start merging with the backbone of Android, and I think ultimately your performance per watt, longevity, battery life, all of that will improve when you're using Android on an ARM chip instead of an x86 flavor of Android on a Chromebook. And I'll tell you that Lenovo gets substantially better battery life than the Core i3 in my Pixelbook ever got. It is not close. So we want good phone style, energy efficient, high performance, low watt chips in Chromebooks moving forward. And there is so much compute power in like a Dimensity 9400 or a Snapdragon 8 Elite, last generation 8 Elite. Just take that and put it in a laptop chassis, or maybe give me a good desktop mode on a phone that can launch Linux or dual boot Windows or go into a proper Chrome OS environment when I plug it into a monitor. And you would be really happy with that experience. It would be crazy powerful for a system that maybe peaks at like 15 watts. But I digress. WX Warmer, I have an ARM-based Windows laptop dual booted for Ubuntu. I love it. It's an HP OmniBook X with a Snapdragon. That's fun. I still haven't taken the plunge on doing any Linux with my Surface. I should, and I'm just too scared to do it. Jonathan Blade, I had a pretty decent conversation about the Neo for education and how it is a bad financial proposition as compared to school Chromebooks. TLDR, iPad and Neos are not great value props. So I'll be curious to see, because right now I also feel like there's a push against too much laptop use in schools. Like, again, I think it was last week we mentioned the story where, I know it might have been a couple weeks back, regardless, that giving kids laptops, and especially laptops at the ages that we're giving them to, like my daughter got her first school laptop in the 3rd grade. It doesn't seem like that's delivering better scores, better testing, better educational opportunities. So we might want to kind of hybridize our approach, go back to more traditional textbooks later, use them longer into the educational system, and then maybe reserve our compute for later experiences just to get kids kind of more up to speed with the way you would use a computer for work. Because right now, I can promise you, and my daughter is barely an anomaly, but most kids are horrifically not tech savvy. They know how to push square get app. They know how to scroll through things. They know how to use a beautifully, perfectly presented UI, and they know how to chat with their friends on Roblox. That is not tech savvy, because the second something doesn't work exactly the way that they think it should, that the way that they've been trained to use that UI, they have zero capacity to troubleshoot, to examine, to have an expectation on what a command should deliver. They don't know where files live. There's nothing about them that is functional when they get into an actual job where they would need to handle any kind of information on a computer system beyond, oh, I pushed the square and I got the app, and then I got the thing, and then the app told me what to do. Like, they're not functional. It's real not good. So I know in Southern California, our iPad initiative failed pretty hard. I think it was LAUSD was trying to deploy iPads, and there was just like Apple wasn't really any help. It was really expensive. There was no way to kind of manage the experience beyond just giving a kid an iPad, and that is, I think it's still ongoing, but I think it went very poorly. Chromebooks, I'm a little bit more forgiving just because it seems like we can just deploy Chromebooks at an incredible scale with fantastically cheap hardware that gets the job done. But I was still most excited to see some students using Ubuntu. Like when my daughter started showing some of her classmates, like, oh, look, there's video editing software. And oh, look, you can record this on the webcam and then you can edit that in Audacity. And it's like we can all make radio shows and podcasts. And like, I saw those kids like light up. They were starting to do things and figuring out how these real world grown up programs were working. And that to me was kind of the fun of using Linux. It was a full-fledged operating system, and a lot of parents were not ready to kind of rein their kids in. They didn't know how Linux worked. And you're like, it's just like Windows, or it's just like Mac OS. It's a different thing. It's called Ubuntu. But we were having these like parent chat conversations. Well, what if they go to a website that I don't want them to? And you're like, well, are they on Wi-Fi? Oh yeah, because we have this and Spectrum and blah, blah, blah. Well, can't you set up your parent protections on the router? Oh, but I don't know, and I'll be on tech support, and now Spectrum will have to tell me how to do. I'm like, okay, well then I guess your kid can't have cool tech because you don't want to set up something on your router. Okay, that's cool. That it's got to suck for everybody. Well, I guess we'll go back to Chromebooks because no one can figure out how that works. Yeah, Ripso. With the fantastic work that Valve are doing with x86 and ARM now, I look forward to the future of Linux. However, it seems like this whole AI thing causing shortages is going to kill those plans. I don't think it's going to kill it, but we do need to prepare ourselves for some horrific market corrections. Where like everyone's going like, oh, if Valve comes out with a VR headset, it better not be more than like $600 because you can get an Oculus for like a half a ham sandwich and a firm, hearty handshake with eye contact. And now maybe my fancy Valve VR headset is going to be $1,500 or $2,000. And man, that's going to burn if that's what it comes out at. I don't know that I'll feel that. I'll really want to, but I might not be able to buy it at that price. But we need to have expectations that at some point you do need to push a product, and you've had other manufacturing in place and they've been building up stockpiles of parts. At some point you need to sell a thing, or you just keep losing money on not selling it. So I'm hoping, which is stupid, but I'm hoping that we'll still see some movement this year at a price point that makes sense for consumers without too many compromises. Oh, from George. He did reply about the Neo. Only glaring omission in Neo is no Thunderbolt, so no Universal Audio Apollo. That's just an architectural limitation of the the A versus M series SoCs. And same thing with Windows on ARM right now, I don't believe has any Thunderbolt support, but we do have USB 4 support. So again, something like that would still be a compromise, even on a more expensive Windows laptop. Yeah, I could totally see where that would be a bummer. But I also feel someone who's in line for a $600 MacBook, knowing how much MacBooks really cost, I think you'd also have like a fair argument to say that's probably someone who's more like Focusrite, not Thunderbolt UA, right? So, maybe they're on a 2i2. And that 2i2 is going to be great on a little USB connection with that MacBook. JGJ saying, I'm concerned about Android on PC. I don't know. I think it's going to be fine. Michael C2, I agree. I don't think it made a whole lot of sense to make super premium Chromebooks but they are pretty interesting as a resale option for people that are buying a Chromebook anyways. I don't know. I feel like there's always an opportunity to say, here's an experience at a very reasonable price. And if someone wants to spend a little bit more to get nicer build quality, a better screen, better speakers, even if it's not a functionally more powerful computer, I still think there's something to be said for that. Like way back in the earliest Windows ARM experiments, Windows RT, you had the Surface RT, and then you also had that really crazy Nokia Lumia 2520. Was it 2520 or 22? I think it was 2520. So the Surface had the built-in stand, was made out of injection molded magnesium, but I think it had an LCD. And the Nokia was plastic, but it had a nicer screen. And you're like, so okay, now we've got a competitive difference. The price points were close. I think the Nokia was a little cheaper, but it's also like, oh, well, now the Surface is too much. Is it? Is it too expensive to have like all of the build quality? Again, you're talking about a metal build with like an engineered hinge versus a plastic build. Does the case of the computer not cost anything? Oh, but they're the same chip. So? I feel like that's irrelevant. So I totally appreciate people are like, oh, who would spend more on a Chromebook? But then I use that Lenovo and you're like, that is a really nice Chromebook. I would maybe consider someone who wanted that streamlined Chromebook experience but wanted something a little bit nicer could step up to that Chromebook. I kind of wish we had another Pixelbook. Step up even more. Make that the high limit. Maybe that's $1,000 Chromebook, and everyone's gonna go, who would buy $1,000 Chromebook? But if it had the best screen on a Chromebook, the best speakers on a Chromebook, the best keyboard on a Chromebook, was in that Chromebook Plus performance category, got excellent battery life, yeah, maybe someone wants a nicer Chromebook. And we know it's gonna be the tiniest slice of the Chromebook market, but it exists as the Halo product that says, hey, this is what the nicest Chromebook could be. I don't see a problem with that. I think that could be kind of fun. But I literally just felt my voice go. So, Midnight Estate, the Lenovo that I've been playing with is $799 if I'm not mistaken. I've seen the Lenovo 14-inch Chromebook Plus as low as $750. Because again, remember, in PC land, our prices are really fluid. I think the MSRP has always been $800, but it hasn't always sold at $800. And if we're within $100 of this MacBook Neo, I think we're actually in pretty good territory given the differences in architecture, the chip performance differences, the screen and display, how much RAM, how much storage. At its lowest, I think it's been a $50 price delta between the upgraded. So if you get the 512 gig of storage MacBook, you're within $50 of the 256 gig Lenovo. Like, yeah, I totally appreciate where you've got some pros and cons in that comparison. It's not an easy oranges to oranges comparison, but I really do like that Lenovo. Man, some people joking about RAM. Yeah, you could do like 4 tabs and maybe an email. uh, yeah, for Michael C2. I see that argument with the iPhone 16e all the time. Like, it's for Nana. Who cares? Well, before the 16e was released, Nana had a $430 option and a $499 option, and now it's a $650 for the worst phone option. And I don't think we're really gonna kind of sort all that stuff out. Oh, George Whittam, one more reply here. Thanks, man. I love your perspective. I love used Macs. Linux MX on my 2015 MacBook Air is running great. I love hearing that, George. I know it's a total uphill climb, but every now and then, there's a nerdy voice actor out there and we can get him on Linux, that's going to be good times. So I got to wrap this up because my voice is actively failing on me here. Let me kind of stretch. We're going to close out this show. Did I have? Yeah, I know I was going to talk about Vivo. I'm going to have to save that. The story that I had was talking about the camera sensors in the Vivo X300 Ultra. I'll still leave that linked in the show notes. But I'm glad we were able to kind of dig in a little bit more. And thank you for allowing me the ranting and railing. Because again, it's not about the MacBook. It's really about the media's perception of Apple can do no wrong. And everyone else has to justify why a product might not be the mostest, highest performingest product ever at a lower price. Who would want that? Average consumer. And then Apple does it and everyone's like, yeah, that was the right play. Good job, Apple. And I'm tired of that. So, lots coming out very soon. I've got a couple videos that are early access on the Patreon. I actually have one more video that's going to go early access on the Patreon before I get any of this other public stuff out. So if you'd like to help support, patreon.com/somegadgetguy. You could also see some of these videos in 4K if that's your jam, if that's the fidelity that you'd like to watch your tech reviews in. But also just means so much to me seeing all the people show up, having these fun conversations, getting into these chats, and sharing content that matters to them. I'm going to close this out. I have a little community on Digg, digg.com, digg.com, and the community is shot on Android. This is actually the most active mobile photography focused community on Digg. We're doing real good. And I just love seeing the creativity and the photos that people are sharing all from their phones. So you want to take your phone photography a little bit more seriously and you want to be inspired. Like say you bought a $1,000 phone and you were told you have great cameras on it. Well, then there's probably more you could do with those cameras. You could push those cameras a little harder. And the most popular submission on Shot on Android over the last week came by way of @Wanderer. @Wanderer shared 3 photos while in the rice fields from his Pixel 9 Pro. And I swear, this first one is just a beautiful shot of grass. You want to talk about green and simplicity. It looks like it's ready to be your next phone wallpaper. It's just gorgeous in how simple it is. But we got some close-ups of rice in a rice field with little ladybugs crawling out of the rice. And he got one with this perfect little stalk of plant and a ladybug just sitting on top. Beautiful bokeh in the background, just an excellent center punched composition. It's just a really lovely shot. It's one of those shots like you can feel the sunset light on your face. You probably smell that wide open field and fresh, clean air. Just a gorgeous series of shots from @Wanderer on digg.com/shot-on-android. And hopefully more folks will participate, share some photos. There's no criteria, the only thing is, it has to be a photo taken by an Android device. iPhone users can go make their own community. They're fine. Everyone thinks iPhones have the bestest cameras, and most of them are wrong. So, thank you so much for tuning in. I'm going to put a pin in it. I'll catch you all next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Thanks so much. Take care of yourselves. Stay up with that mental health so you can keep being the amazing tech neighbor I know you can be. And I'll catch you all here next week. And yeah, keep your heads down. It's getting crazy out there, and I hope everyone stays safe. I love you all, and I'll catch you back.